When World War One started, millions of men in Germany chose to do their duty for Kaiser and Fatherland and joined the army and happily went off to war. Max G was one of those soldiers. He gave up his job as a carpenter to volunteer for the army. During the war, he suffered a serious gunshot wound to his right lower leg, which ended his military service. For a long time after his discharge from the army, he repeatedly complained of pain, tremors and cramps in both his injured leg and his right arm. His war injury was the reason why all of Max's attempts to return to his previous job as a carpenter failed. Nobody wanted to employ him. As he couldn't get a job, he became very depressed. As a result, on the 24th of September 1926, he was hospitalized in Großschweidnitz care home. Noted on the admission form: diagnosis, depression, cause, serious war injury, unemployment. As a result of the war, there must have been hundreds of thousands, if not millions of men suffering not only from physical injuries, but also from post-traumatic stress. In Weimar Germany, the authorities awarded pensions and assistance for those like Max who were suffering from mental illness caused by the war. Until the very end, the Weimar welfare system was prepared to recognise military service injuries, including mentally disabled veterans. Many veterans felt unappreciated. The National Socialist German Workers' Party took advantage of the general discontent of war victims and survivors in various election campaigns before 1933. It consistently resorted to the contemporary slogan about the lack of thanks from the fatherland. Many war veterans put great hopes in the National Socialist Party. But what happened after the Nazi seizure of power was quite the opposite. On the 3rd of July 1934, the Hitler cabinet approved the Reich Ministry of Labour's proposal to amend the law on pensions. Rather than give additional assistance to World War I veterans, this law did exactly the opposite. War pensions that had already been granted during the Weimar Republic could be withdrawn. Veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder were particularly affected by this. Around 16,000 of them were identified as malingerers and their pensions were cancelled. Even though there were still isolated exceptions and hardship regulations, especially for those old fighters of the Nazi Party, the Third Reich actually meant the end of the state-recognised status of war-disabled people. People with PTSD in the Nazi eugenic way of thinking had degenerative genetic makeup. For the Nazis, such people were undesirable national comrades who should no longer be a financial burden on the national community. As a result, mentally ill veterans of the First World War were systematically selected for the T4 murder campaign. It can be assumed that up to 5,000 mentally ill veterans of the First World War were among the T4 victims. Psychiatrists such as Valentin Faltelhauser and Friedrich Panzer advocated an extreme policy towards those injured in World War I. They considered that these mentally ill veterans of the First World War had lives not worth living and they were to be killed. One of those lives not worthy of life was that of Max. His health had deteriorated so much over the years that he had to remain continuously hospitalized in the Großschweidnitz crematorium from 1933 onwards. On the 25th of September 1940, he was deported to the Pirna Sonnenstein killing center, and there he was murdered. If you'd like to know more about the murder of German soldiers with post-traumatic stress disorder, then click on the attached video. And if you'd like to know more about the T4 murder campaign, then subscribe to my channel.